was casting an Elysian spell, and a strange mercurial feeling was hovering in the air. The boy's hair was shining like white silk in the sun. He had skinny, freckled arms that whirled like an octopus, and mischievous, fairy-tale eyes. "My name's not Colin, and you don't know who I am." "Well, who are you, then?" "Shush," he whispered, bursting into giggles. "My name is Lal." "Is that right?" said his father, tousling his hair. "And I live on a moonbeam, way up there." Then he jiggled around, like a plane coming into land. He was 4'2". He was 6. "Whoa!" laughed Jim. "I think that's what they call a crash landing." His father was 6'3". They say the power of waves comes from the wind rolling over the sea. Eileen Larkin already knew the tide was coming in. "Don't be long, Jim," she said. "Don't stay in too long." She smiled at Colin. "And don't you get cold, or you'll be shivering when you come out." "I'm a plane, I'm a plane, I'm a plane," he sang, and his words danced back on the air. They say the force of a wave comes from the strength of the wind. She watched them leave, the man and the boy across the shells and the pebbles, then across the hard sand. They stood for a moment as the foam licked their feet, then raced in. They say the crash of a wave comes from how far it has travelled. She could hear them laughing, Jim hollering, Colin squealing, her husband and child, like father, like son. Some waves travel thousands of miles, but it only takes 3 minutes to boil an egg. Jim struck out, his arms scissoring the surface. She watched him for a while, until he was a wriggling tadpole. He always goes too far, she thought, and unpacked the picnic things. She glanced up. Colin was floating like a water lily, the water jigsawing around him. He'll be cold, she thought. She took out the coloured plates and plastic spoons. A shadow curtained the sand, and then it was gone. The sun returned. She poured a tumbler of tea and hugged her knees. Her eyes closed. She held her face up to the sun. "Hold your face up to the sun," her mother had always said. "Get the benefit while you can. We don't get much of it." The water was changing, but she wasn't looking. There was sun in her eyelids, and the tang of seaweed in a freshening breeze. She moved her hand slightly, spilling the tea, and opened her eyes and watched the coloured tumblers rolling like tulips on the sand. The wave began to rise. She closed her eyes again. She scooped up a handful of sand and let it fall through her fingers, like an old-fashioned egg timer. When she opened her eyes, a phosphorescent light had enveloped the beach in blue. She inhaled the freshness of the moment. The waves were rolling in now, and she watched them surge and break and foam. It took her a minute. The clouds shivered. "Colin?" She stood up. "Jim!" A stone stabbed her foot as she started to run. She ran crooked in the wind, down to the water's edge. The beach was slanted. She hadn't noticed that before. She shouted their names. The waves slapped her ankles as she waded in. A surge of water hit her. She was wet through before she saw him. He was upside down and bobbing like a duck in the bath. She pulled and dragged him, stumbled and fell. The water was in her mouth, her nose, her hair. They made it to the shore. She shook and slapped him, but his eyes were shut. She got him on his side and rocked him gently. Her eyes strayed out to sea.